Cashflow Diary Podcast, episode 316.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you're here today. In fact, I think you're even going to be glad that you're here today. If you happened to catch episode 297, then you already know who I'm talking to today. And if you listened to episode 297, you know how excited I was. So excited that I was like, look, we can't even finish this conversation today. You have got to come back. And she has so graciously decided to do exactly that. And I'm excited for you. And I'm also excited for me because I know I took a lot of notes last time. I know we're going to take even more notes this time because this time we're also going to dive into her book a little bit. The Path to Wealth, 7 spiritual steps for financial abundance. And I love the spiritual part of that. And if you're wondering who I'm talking about none other than McCarthy, CEO of Bizults. She's been doing entrepreneurship for a long, long time. Her entire family is just like a competition. Who can create the most revenue? That's what I feel like when listening to her. And I think you're going to get some of that same thing. But one of the things I'm going to tell you to go get right now is a pen and paper, because you're going to learn a lot that you're going to want to implement today. So help me welcome back May McCarthy. May, you there?
I'm here. Thanks so much for having me.
You are quite welcome. You actually are one of the few that have been here more than once. So I'm really, really excited to have you back because you had so much to share. So I have to ask this question. So how many businesses have you started since the last time we talked?
Well, I've invested in several, but I haven't started any.
Exactly. See, that's my point. You do not sit still. I love it. I absolutely love it. Now, last time we spent a lot of time talking about you, and I got totally enamored by everything that you've gone through. Could you do me a favor, just for the few people who didn't listen to the prior episode? Can you give us just a brief summary of a little bit of where you're from, and more importantly, how you got to be where you are?
Okay, I will keep it brief. I'm actually the last of 10 kids. Raised in Hawaii. And, anytime you're the younger kid, you have to learn sales and negotiating skills just to navigate through family. And all of us became great salespeople. I mean, we, all 10 of us, we're all really, really good at that. And we also like other people. We really, really like it, and learned from our parents and from growing up in Hawaii about this fair exchange of value. So I ended up starting businesses when I was a kid, my first one at 6, and had several as I was going through my youth. And then when I went away to college, right after my freshman year, my sister and I started a business. We grew it to, we had about 250 employees while I was going to school full time. And then I went to work for a couple of big companies, Boeing and Johnson & Johnson, and realized, I didn't fit real well. I would see problems that needed to be solved very quickly, or opportunities that were very, very outside the box. And I know a lot of entrepreneurs will say that. We just think differently. And we want to get to a solution or provide customer service in a more meaningful way. And I was doing the same thing, and leadership of the companies loved it. I mean, we were generating additional revenues like crazy and happy customers. But that middle management area, I didn't know how to navigate. I don't know how to do those kinds of politics, and inadvertently would get myself in trouble. So I decided I better get out of causing such a problem to my immediate bosses. And so I left and started the second adult company, which was in telecommunications. I had 3 telecom companies and 2 software and equipment companies that would essentially automate drug distribution processes for large hospital systems. And so consequently, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. I had fashion, retail, telecom, both domestic and international and wholesale, as well as writing software and teaming it up with equipment to create distribution processes for large hospital systems and their drugs. So it doesn't really matter what industry you're in. You still apply the same principles of business. You still have to have some practical knowledge and combine that with something that, you name the title of my book, and I do have that word spiritual in there deliberately.
Right.
Because, I'm not the only one that relies on some unseen intelligence to guide and direct me towards achieving my goals. Bill Gates does it. Steve Jobs did it. Oprah Winfrey, Steven Spielberg, Thomas Edison, and the list goes on and on. There's this unseen intelligence, which we can call intuition, we can call gut instincts, we can call whatever we want, but it's available along with our subconscious to point out possibilities for us to achieve our goals. But the important thing that every successful business person will tell you is that you actually have to have some goals.
Some goals, it sounds like I would love to. I can only imagine what your goals look like, because you just seem to keep moving and keep going, and you keep changing them as you grow. Would you say something like personal growth is something that's important to you? Is that what keeps you going? Like, hey, I can still do more?
Well, personal growth, I like living a happy, satisfied, and fulfilled life. And like I said, I like people. And what I spend a lot of my time doing is helping other people succeed. So it's kind of the purpose that I wrote the book, is so that I could enable people to word their goals and focus on their goals in such a way that it would enable their subconscious and this unseen intelligence, this source of intuition, to show up and point them in the right direction. I also spend a lot of time helping small startups through the Washington Biomed and Biotech Association. So I mentor really, really brilliant PhDs and researchers and people that have commercialized businesses out of these research organizations, and they're just fascinating, but they don't know how to do business. So I, along with a bunch of other really successful business people, we give our time to elevate their knowledge and enable them to avoid some of the mistakes that we've made in business, and to help them get on a path to profitability and success. I also do the same in the university system. I go into the classroom a lot and speak to undergrad and MBA students that are interested in entrepreneurship. And we also have a Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center at Seattle University, and I chair the advisory board and help put on a big business plan competition every year.
Goodness gracious. And see, this, I think right now everyone just heard, oh, this is why Jay asked her to come back. It's like, okay, there aren't all the time when you get to meet someone where you're just like, dude, I just want to hang out with you and just hang out because you sound like fun, and it sounds like I'm going to learn some stuff too. So I've got a ton of questions just based upon what you just said there, because I thought I was going to go one direction, but now I can see I'm going a completely different direction. But I got to ask a question for myself, in the sense that you said you had a business that had 250 employees. What is the largest number of employees you had at one time? Was that one, or is there another one?
No, I've had 2 businesses that have had 250 employees. The largest revenue was over $100 million in annual revenues.
Okay. I got like 1 employee. One. And it's like, oh my gosh, it feels different than when working with our vendors and our contractors and 1099 individuals. It feels like so much more. It feels like so much more to do other than just the actual execution of business in and of itself. So yeah. I'm assuming that other entrepreneurs listening right now are feeling some of the same things, like 250, but I mean, help me understand that my brain is short circuiting a little bit simply because it feel like I said, it just feels like there's so much time and effort and energy that's poured into just that section that has nothing to do with delivering, or doesn't have a direct impact, or doesn't seem to have a direct impact of delivering the product or service or revenue.
Well, when you're growing a business, entrepreneurs, like told you a little bit earlier, we think differently. You think differently than many people that are just satisfied employees.
Right.
And when we are considering bringing on employees, it's because we have created an org chart. Let's say we've created an org chart with 30 jobs, and right now our name is in every single one of those jobs, or a contractor's name is in one of those jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And when we decide to bring on an employee, it's because we've done a value assessment that if I spend more time doing this thing and I can farm out this other job, which I'm doing right now, like, janitor, taking the garbage out when you're a brand new startup. But if I'm doing that job and I could hire somebody to do it, and they love doing that kind of stuff and could do it better, they could do data entry, they could do QuickBooks, they could do whatever it is that I can do. But if I freed myself up to do what I'm really good at, which is sales, strategy, projecting how we're going to grow and serve our customers better, if I could spend more time doing that, is it going to not only pay for the employee, but also increase revenue substantially?
Yes.
So you do those assessments, and the one piece of advice I advise everyone. In fact, I just did a mentoring session with a couple of PhDs who have a genome company. They do. They essentially are analyzing DNA from all sorts of different agriculture species to enable different kinds of companies to assist them in not having diseases infiltrate their crops. I mean, very cool stuff. So they, at any rate, what I told them to do was to create an organizational chart of where they thought they'd be after a year, where they thought they'd be at the end of 3 years and 5 years. And I mean, create an actual org chart and then put their names in every box, because there's only 2 of them. and then start highlighting which box you could farm out. Now, granted, you don't have the revenues or the money to be able to do this yet, but it's keeping you focused on, well, if I get somebody that can do these wet lab tests so that I can be free to go out and call on new customers to increase sales, then that would be a good hire. So you highlight that box, wet lab technician, and you highlight it yellow. Your name's in there right now, but highlight it yellow so that you're focused, and you look at that org chart every day and you're focused on, okay, that's my next hire. What ends up happening is you might be talking to somebody about needing a wet lab technician, and they know somebody that's great at it. Because it's at the forefront of your thoughts, you are more open to seeing possibilities of hiring the right people, and to make it really, really easy. So that's one thing that I tell everybody to do that's growing a business is don't wait till the revenue comes in before you make your plan. Plan in advance, and then see what opportunities show up to not only satisfy your needs, but to also increase revenues.
Exactly. And I like this. And you're hitting on something that I don't have any scientific evidence that backs this up, but I'm going to ask you, because I think the answer, I'm going to enjoy your answer. As a real estate person, and we're often building teams in various different places. As many of the listeners are, they're out there, they're building teams for various different things. And what you just laid out was a great way to get that process started. I think, and I'm wondering if you believe the same, I've often said that women have an advantage in the team building area, because I strongly believe that you were given some sort of radar. I don't even know what to call it, but it's something that's in the back of your head that says, yeah, I mean, and oftentimes when I ask like my wife, hey, how did that person make you feel? I don't know. They gave me the willies. What are the willies? I don't know. The point is, I know I've learned to listen to those when she says that, like, you know what, that might not be the person I want to work with because it gave her the willies. I can't explain it, but that could be the very, very thing. I guess my question to you is how much in the team building process does something like that play for you? And I've got to ask, do you think women have an advantage there?
Well, first of all, what I do is always establish a goal first.
Okay.
And like, for instance, when I'm building teams, one of the very first things that I write down every single morning as part of my goal attainment process is I'm so grateful that only those people that are right for my company show up and are available to hire. And all others find their good elsewhere. So I will know if somebody shows up. As a result, my subconscious will pop up and say, that's not the right person. Because I'm so focused on what I do want, which is great team people, great team players. And consequently, as a result of that, and the way that we treat our employees with great respect and give them lots of autonomy and really understand their brilliance. When you're building a company, there's a particular number that's right for you where you still feel like you're creating a family. And then when you get past that number, you don't know everybody's name anymore. And for me, that number is in that 100, 150 person range. So that's my sweet spot, is growing companies up to that range, and then it's time to sell. Because I can't keep the culture of us being a family together. But I write down that goal every single day when I'm growing a company, that only those people that are right for our company and our culture and serving our customers and working well with their coworkers show up for us to hire, and all others find their good elsewhere. And somehow, even the employee that's wrong for us will show up and realize that they're not right for us. And I don't have to go through the hiring and firing process.
Yeah. Definitely have been through that.
And in terms of, whether women or men have this ability to tap into that feeling or that intuitive sense or that recognizing when their subconscious is trying to point them in a right direction, I think we all have it. But the challenge is being able to cultivate it. We live in such a world of data. And Albert Einstein actually said that we all have this rational mind and this intuitive mind. And the rational mind ends up wanting to reason through any possible decision. And so you might feel a little bit of the willies too, but you're going to rationalize, well, wait a minute, this guy was hugely successful at his previous company. He was a huge revenue generator. Everything looks good on paper. His references check out. Rationally, he looks like the right hire. Mm-hmm. But if you do cultivate this intuitive mind in there, you are going to get something that shows up that says, this is not the right guy. This is going to be somebody that poisons the rest of our team. Or, he has a backstabbing characteristic where all he wants to do is climb over everybody else and not work cohesively with the rest of the team. I mean, something will show up if you cultivate this intuitive mind to be equally as important.
Okay, so then I guess my question becomes, is what you just said, what you just described then, because when you use the word like cultivate, that says to me, oh, I can go learn this.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. Where?
Well, you could buy my book.
Well, okay, and that's where I was actually going there because I was like, is this one? I was looking at the title again, thinking, is this one of the 7 steps? And I think that's what you're saying. Yes.
Well, actually, the whole process is cultivating that intuitive mind. Like I said, we're in such a world of data, and we end up, if we have a question about anything, we Google it, we talk to our friends and family about it, we go to subject matter experts, we see what they have to say, and we analyze and measure and really, really determine, okay, these are the possible steps, and what could be the outcome of this step, and we rationalize every single possibility before we make a decision. But here's the cool thing about the intuitive mind. It's going to take you beyond your rational mind. And what you do every single day is describe your goals as already completed. And this is not unusual. This is, what do we do in business? We have projections. We have customer satisfaction survey goals. We have employee satisfaction goals. I mean, we have revenue, profitability, service. Well, I used to write down in my last company, because we had big pieces of capital equipment, that I was so grateful that our superior products worked flawlessly and were maintenance free. Well, that wasn't exactly the case when I first started writing that goal. But what ended up happening is our team got all of these ideas that just seemed to fly out of the blue. And they had worked in this industry for a very long time, but they'd got this like intuitive idea that just sort of flew in that said, maybe if we stayed on site as part of installation for just one more week and trained that graveyard shift a little bit more conservatively, we wouldn't have the service calls that we're experiencing now. I mean, it seems really obvious, but it wasn't then, because every one of our competitors was working to reduce on-time installation from 6 weeks to 4 weeks, and this went completely counter to that, but it was very in line with our goal, which was maintenance-free, superior, easy to use.
Got it. Okay. So then just let me ask plainly, what would be the 7 spiritual steps for financial abundance?
Well, the very first thing is you have to make a decision to partner with whatever that creative intelligence is, the source of your intuition. Okay. So you want to acknowledge that it's available. Okay. And then you set aside about 25-30 minutes every single morning doing something to put you into a receptive mood. So the very first thing you do, step one, is to take 5 minutes and read something uplifting. I like short stories about ordinary people having the kind of success that I want to have with this intuitive, messaging that comes to them, or their subconscious showing up to help them. Really short stories, just 5 minutes. And like I said, there are numbers of people who say they rely on intuition as part of their success tool. That would be Gates, Jobs, Winfrey. Steven Spielberg just did a commencement address at Harvard, and one of the things he said was that he had to rely on intuition for success. So short stories, and in the back of my book, I list a number of books that are suitable for that. So that's the first thing. Spend 5 minutes reading something that puts you into a receptive mood, that makes you believe that what has happened for others can happen for you and more. The second thing you do is write out a gratitude letter. And that gratitude letter is just saying, thanks so much for all these things. You would say, I'm so grateful for my wife. I'm so grateful for my business. I'm so grateful for this. And you also want to be grateful for what you want, but describe it as though it's already completed. This is really, really important. We're coming up towards the end of the year, and I'm often asked to come and speak to groups of people. And one of the topics is always, resolutions and goal setting. And undoubtedly, there's somebody in the audience who says that, their goal is to lose 10 pounds. They want,
Right.
They want to lose 10 pounds. And I look at them and I say, you've already reached your goal. Well, no, I haven't. I'm 10 pounds overweight. Well, no, but your goal is to be wanting to lose. You already are wanting to live. So what you should do is change that to something with gratitude as though you've already completed it. I'm so grateful that I am now physically fit, trim, toned, energetic, in a pain-free body that's easily able to go on hikes and walks with my family and friends, and we have a great time. Or I'm so grateful that our products are considered to be superior by all of our customers and that they're easy to use and maintenance free. In fact, our customers love our products and our customer service so much, they tell all of their peers at other hospitals that they should buy from us too. So describe it as though it's already complete with gratitude. Then the third step is to read it out loud with emotion. And any school teacher will tell you that if you read something out loud, it anchors it more fully within you. And what we're trying to do is to activate that intuitive messaging as well as our subconscious to point out possibilities, to filter those billions of pieces of data that are coming at us every single day and trying to get our attention. But it'll filter it and point out possibilities to take steps along the path to achieve our goals. Do you remember the last time you bought a car or some big item?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, well, most people, do a lot of research. They might test drive cars. They might talk to their friends and family about cars. Maybe they know somebody that has a car that's like the one that they want. And they really spend a little bit of time really thinking about and feeling what that new car is going to be like. Well, they start seeing that car driving around everywhere, and they never noticed that car before. But now that model is driving around everywhere. So their subconscious had filtered all the other cars and pointed out and illuminated and brought to their attention those other cars as possibilities of them achieving that car. So the same thing happens when we do this practice and end up putting our goals as though they're already completed at the forefront of our thoughts. We start to notice possibilities. And when you're reading it out loud with gratitude, you're lighting up that front part of your brain. And that's been proven to show that when that's lit up with a positive emotion, we're able to focus and see more possibilities clearly.
I know we've got more to go, and I want to get to them, but I'm having this experience right now where I'm realizing some of these things are things that I wasn't doing them in a structured way, but they were definitely things that I've been doing, especially when it comes to I typically think about getting started and just telling people what it is that I'm looking for and having that item, if suddenly it appears. And I never really thought about having a formal process to actually make that happen.
Yeah.
I've just gotten used to it happening.
Yeah. You're a demonstration magnet.
I'm like, that's it. It's just going to happen. Let's just go this way. So it's pretty funny just listening to you. That doesn't have to be a unique experience. You too can obviously experience all kinds of interesting things when you become a fire-ready aim kind of guy or gal as you continue to listen. I know it sounds scary. It's change. It's different. But you know what? So is what you're after. You're looking for more. You want to be more. You are more. However, you must begin to do more and do more differently than what you've done in the past. Here's an idea. Go to cashflowdiary.com/free book. Again, that's cashflowdiary.com/free book. Why? To pick up a copy of my book, Cashflow Diary, 10 Steps to Creating Wealth in Any Economy. And guess what? You will learn in chapter 1 alone. How to think differently, how to look at adversity differently, and more importantly, what to do because your story is the very rocket fuel to make sure that you can hang out amongst the shooting stars. Again, that's cashflowdiary.com/free book, cashflowdiary.com/free book. Put your name and email address in there, and I'll shoot you a PDF copy right now. Now, let's get back to May.
And that's part of what ends up occurring. That fourth step, which happens in the morning. Remember, we've got 5 and 10 minutes for each of these steps. So you've only spent 25 to 30 minutes in the morning. But the fourth step is to pick 1, maybe 2 of the goals that you just wrote down and see yourself this is a technique that professional athletes, musicians, and even business people, I've done this so many times. I mean, I do this every single morning. And what I would do is see myself in my mind's eye in the completed goal. See yourself in the completed goal. I had this one experience where we were a pretty brand new startup. We just had a handful of employees. I needed and wanted a minimum of $400,000 in new revenue by a certain period of time. And I travel a lot, and I happened to be in Cleveland. I got off the plane, grabbed my bags, got my rental car, went to the hotel that I always stay at, and dropped off my bags. And then I get back in my car and go to a grocery store that I know that's 5 minutes away so that I can get protein shakes and water and stuff like that for my stay. And all of a sudden, in my car, I get this very strong thought about a grocery store that I know that's 15 minutes away. And so this rational mind pops up and says, May, you can't drive across town at 9:00 at night in Cleveland. Your appointment's at 8:00 tomorrow morning, which is 5:00 in the morning, Seattle time. You're going to be way too tired. Just go to the grocery store that's close by. Everyone can identify with that.
Right.
But instead, what you do as part of the 5th and 6th steps is you figuratively stomp your foot and say, no, hey, intuition, subconscious, source of whatever this intelligence is. If I'm supposed to drive to that other grocery store, make it obvious. And sure enough, I could actually see the neon, sign in my head. And I thought, well, okay. And then my intuitive mind had an opportunity to show up. And the intuitive mind said, well, yeah, it's true. It's 9:00 at night here in Cleveland, but it's only 6:00 in Seattle. You're not going to be able to go to sleep anyway. It's too early. Plus, everything you want might be on sale at that other grocery store. Just make the drive. So I did. As I'm walking into the store, Jay, a guy was walking out at exactly the same time, and he was a potential customer that I had met 6 months ago at a trade show. Wait, he wasn't returning any of my calls or emails for an appointment. So here he is. We strike up a conversation. He asked me about the growth of our company and why I was in Cleveland. And I mentioned, who my already signed customers were. And he said, well, wait a minute. Why don't you come and make a presentation to us while you're here? Well, that led to another presentation, and a contract worth over $500,000.
Of course.
In the time period that I wanted it. So you can cultivate it by recognizing when you get these messages. And if you get one and your rational mind tries to talk you out of it, just say, wait a minute. Hey, intuitive mind, you got anything to say? Just stop and be quiet and see if you get another lead. I usually just sort of stop and say, hey, I need another lead. And I'm not kidding you. And if I get one, I take a step. And if I don't, I just, go along my way. But opportunities will show up to point you in the right direction. But many times they're not going to make rational sense. And I've got countless stories in my book that show how this works. And when you do take a step, celebrate it. Figure out somebody you can celebrate with, and then write down a little note that said, got a lead to go across town in Cleveland and met a potential customer, got the appointment. Yay, celebrate. What that will do is also tell your brain, you know what, I'm serious about achieving these goals and I'm noticing the possibilities. So you can get out of the way and enable more of these possibilities to show up. Because your brain wants to protect you. It remembers every time you had a goal in the past and didn't achieve it and were disappointed. And it doesn't want you to be disappointed. So it sort of filters and puts on mute this intuitive messaging center. But as soon as it recognizes that you're serious and you're noticing the intuitive messages that come in, it's going to stop trying to protect you and enable them to come in floods.
You know what's interesting is, I guess at this point, I know for me personally, I'm at a point to where it's almost like I am more concerned about what would happen if I don't listen to that than I am about trying to rationalize it away. It's like, ooh, I need to follow that rabbit hole every time it comes up because I just don't know, and I don't know what I don't know. Whether that be, should I really go to that networking event again? I mean, I've been, or do I really want to buy that property? Or, I mean, it's so many times that this thing, that it comes up and it comes into play. I guess my question is how did you learn to trust it?
Well, I started doing exactly what I described, and I end up noting proof. And when I can turn around after achieving a goal and I can turn around and say, okay, there is no way in the world I would have said, I want $400,000 in new revenue. And the first step I should take is to drive across town.
Right.
There's no way I would do that. And once you start to recognize that it's working, then you continually are on high alert to see when more opportunities show up. And I tell you what, it just ends up being a game. It's almost like you have this unseen partner that's doing the heavy lifting. All I have to do, this idea of success is simply a system. It's just a system. If I focus on what I want with gratitude as though I've already achieved it, and I really describe the outcome, not the how to get there, but the outcome of what it's like when I've already achieved it, then this subconscious and intuitive messaging intelligence will show up to point me towards taking steps along a path that somehow it creates in order for me to get to the goal. And it's always more fun. It's always better. I mean, there are so many stories that I have, not only that I have, but other people that use this same technique have, where we just shake our head and go, this is just a game. All I have to do is my job. And somehow I get guided and directed. Now you do, like Steve Jobs said, you do have to have courage to follow your intuition, because it will not make rational sense in many cases. But if you do, oh my gosh, the results are outstanding. And when you turn around and look at the path that you've been led on, it is just, you'll crack up. It's just so much fun.
Oh, and I agree with you. And I get this question a lot, and I know there's somebody asking it that's listening right now. Because you said something that I think was very paramount, and I want to make sure that other people hear it. You said specifically to focus more on the outcome than the how to get there.
Right.
Yet, oftentimes when I'm confronted with something new, or when we're confronted with something new, the first thing is, Jay, I want to buy real estate. How am I going to buy real estate? I don't have any money. I don't have this. And we get a bunch of how questions thrown at us immediately. And if we don't have the answer immediately for those how questions, we often go another direction, or if we can't find that answer. I'm curious to understand how to resolve that cognitive dissonance, if you will.
Well, you do need to have practical knowledge. So let's say, I decide I want to be, a real estate baroness. and
in your spare time, spare time.
I mean, but I've had many, many rental properties in my past. But I just choose not to have as many today because I like the freedom that I have to do other stuff. At any rate, moving right along, what if the goal is to be successful in a brand new industry that you know nothing about, and believe me, I've been there, you still write down that you're achieving the kind of success outcome that you want, but your intuitive lead may involve going to get some practical knowledge. All right. I find that remember I mentioned the brain, how it tries to put these messages on mute if we're doing something that is bigger than we've ever achieved before, or radically different than anything we've done before. It's almost like our brain puts that subconscious and intuitive messaging on mute.
Yeah.
And what we have to do, and I talk about this in my book, is I call it jump-starting your good, or welcoming and making familiar your good. Like when I was asked to write a book, it was so not supposed to be on my resume. All right. This was so against everything I ever thought I would be doing. I was going to remain anonymous and be very, very wealthy and successful. And here I'm presented with this idea of having to write a book because people are asking for it. They'd come to some workshops that I teach and they wanted the book because they wanted all the stories of application. And I thought to myself, no way. I don't know. I don't know the first thing about writing a book. So what I had to do was start writing down that I'm so grateful that I'm a best-selling author and that hundreds of thousands of people around the world are being blessed and supported and prospered by this. But I also went out to find other authors. I did whatever I could to make what they were doing familiar to me. And what I found was that they were just ordinary people like I was, and that if they could do it, I could do it. So what your brand new real estate folks will do is write down their outcome of what they want and go make it familiar and welcome. Go find other realtors that are experiencing the success that they want. Go find other developers, other investors that are experiencing the success that they want and make that lifestyle familiar to them. Find out what they know and how they're doing what they're doing. Meanwhile, still doing this daily practice of goal attainment.
Here's one of the things that I am beginning to enjoy a lot about doing this show and talking to so many different people is that some things just keep coming up over and over again. And when that happens, it's like it becomes a clue as to what needs to happen in order to make things work. Let me ask you this, May, for the person that's possibly stuck inside their head a little bit, because I hear lots of action. I mean, yes, I hear strategy, I hear planning in what you say, but I also hear that there's an action component that cannot be ignored. What would you say to those individuals who have found themselves to be, stuck in that proverbial analysis paralysis?
Okay, well, first of all, we often hear that idea of stuck in a rut. And there's actually a scientific explanation for it. We come to this point in our life and have a lot of very, very strong beliefs and behaviors that we've brought along. Like in my book example, I had two very strong beliefs and behaviors. One was I was trained ever since I was in my 20s by very, very successful businessmen. They were my mentors, and they were worth hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, really, really big players. And they said, you know what? Here's the goal. You want to be really wealthy, really successful, but not have anybody know who you are. You want to remain anonymous. So throughout my career, I pushed out I would push my business partner. I would push my customers. I would push, everybody out front so that I could remain anonymous. I wasn't even on Facebook or any of those social medias at all until I decided to be an author. And the second thing was that in high school, I went to a public high school, which has been ranked, 50 out of 50 states, in terms of English and grammar. And although I did really well in English, I went through life thinking, I couldn't possibly be a great writer. Although I wrote all of the advertising copy, all of the brochures, all of the manuals, everything. I love to write. But in the back of my mind, I had these two beliefs. My wealthy business friends used to say only spouting whales can get harpooned. And so I had these two very, very strong beliefs. And in your brain, you've got things called neural pathways. And the ones that are very, very strong and seem to have kind of a rut, a groove, those are tied to very strong beliefs and behaviors. Well, the good news is that we can strengthen a new belief and behavior, a new belief in a new area of business, a new level of success. We can diminish by not paying attention to those strong beliefs and behaviors anymore and turning our attention to these beliefs and behaviors that we want to grow, which is that, of course, I'm successful, duh, and I could do anything I want and I'll always be successful. So we can strengthen that neural pathway so that it is stronger than these old beliefs and behaviors. And the way that we do that It's through repetition. It's the exact same process I just described for you. And that's why success is a system, not a secret. I mean, if we strengthen those neural pathways and those beliefs and behaviors, we sort of become magnetic to good that we want, and it comes and just sticks to us. I mean, you mentioned earlier in the show, you have a very strong belief and behavior in, of course I'm going to be successful. Of course I'm going to notice possibilities to take advantage of opportunities. Of course I am, because that's a strong belief for you, but you had to create it. And people can do that with this daily practice.
Interesting. And that's, there's just so many things that are possible, which has always been the case. But listening to you, and I'm going to make a stab and say, if people were brave enough to pick up a copy of your book, that you would make them more probable. So that's also excellent. Speaking of which, for those that want to find out more about what you're doing and maybe even grab a copy of the book, what would be the best way for them to catch up with you?
Well, it's available on all online retailers. It actually, in the ebook version, made it to number 2. It made it to number 2 in personal finance, which was a real surprise for me. But again, it's a system, and its success is a system. So if you want to get a copy of the book, it's available from all online retailers. But I want to, and you can also go to my website and learn more about me, maymccarthy.com. But I want to point out that, you can't get the book and then just have instant success. You got to do the work.
Hold on. Someone was washing dishes, the dog, something. Say that again, please.
You can't just get a quick fix pill or book or strategy. You actually have to do the daily work to prepare yourself to receive the success that you want. This is going to help you to be able to, all great managers, all great business people, what do? We get our team together and we review our goals on a regular basis. That's just part of our success strategy. Well, you can do the same thing, but you're going to do it by yourself. Every single morning, set that alarm for 30 minutes early and review your goals as though it's already complete so that you can enable your subconscious and your intuition to show up and illuminate possibilities for you to take steps to achieve exactly what you want.
Yeah.
Got to do the work.
Totally. There is no skipping that whatsoever.
But the cool part is that it's really, really fun.
Well, yes, it can be. And as I'm listening to you, I'm like, oh, like I said earlier, it was like, oh, I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. It's just, I just do it. And those are the fun pieces. There have been many times where I've experienced exactly what you're talking about. Like, people ask me all the time, how did you find that investor? I'm like, if I told you how crazy it was and how we happened to end up in the same spot at the same time, you wouldn't believe me and you would have never planned. That would not be your go-to-market strategy. I'm going to go take my kids to the park today. And because I'm taking my kids to the park, that's going to lead to this conversation, which led to me going to this open house, and boom, there they were.
I love it.
Love it. That's the type of stuff that happens to that happens to be a lot.
Exactly. But you're open to it and it's possible. You're like, oh gosh, all I got to do is stay focused on my goal, the outcome that I want, which for you, is to increase, investors, increase properties that you own, increase revenues and profitability. And those are the things, as long as you stay focused and open to the fact that it could be just a crazy ride, and it doesn't have to do only with money.
Right.
I've used this to save my life in terms of avoiding cancer. I've used this for relationships. Maybe you have a relationship with somebody that's just not great. Well, guess what? You can actually use this for harmonious relationships, recreation, health, all sorts of different areas of your life that are important. It doesn't have to be just for your finances.
I think everyone now knows why I had to have you back again. And because it's like they can hear what it is that you just live a certain way. You have a certain level of being and a way of relating that totally helps all of us, myself included. With that being said, though, and I hate to say this, but I think we're near the end. But I guess one of my final questions would be to you in this particular case is, for someone that is, maybe they are stuck in that rut, or someone who is hoping to begin to, make that change, kind of like, how long do you think it takes for someone to put themselves in a position, at least mentally, physically, spiritually, etc., to be able to begin to see or do these things? Because I know someone's listening is like, man, this is going to take me forever to become what May's talking about.
No, it doesn't. What they'll start to notice, I ask people to describe the outcome of their goals in every major area of their life. And that's, their finances, their use of skills and talents, their relationships, their recreation, their, every major area of their life. And what they're going to start to notice right away is a sense of peace and joy. I mean, right away. That happens. Everybody tells me that happens like after the second day of doing this practice. But also, they're going to start to notice some of their smaller goals manifesting very, very quickly. Their larger goals are going to take a little longer, and I'll tell you why. It's because of what I described regarding the neural pathways. It's like their brain is trying so hard to keep them from being disappointed. It remembers every time they were in the past. And so in order to convince our brain, Muhammad Ali is one of my very favorite athletes. And he said that it's through repetition that we create belief. And once you get to that place where you believe that it's possible, you don't know how it's going to happen, but you believe it's possible, then your brain says, okay, I know you're serious, and I'll go ahead and allow these intuitive and subconscious messages to come through and help you. So you have to put forth the effort to have repetition. It's kind of like, have you ever walked through a field of tall grass?
Tall grass?
Yeah, just tall grass. A field.
Once I was in Colorado, I stopped on the side of the road and saw some corn.
Yeah, okay. So if you walk through that field once and come back the next day, you're not going to even be able to see where you walked.
Oh.
But if you walk that same path every single day, eventually you create a well-worn path and even, this kind of rut, And so that's what you're trying to do with repetition. I love to tell people that repetition reaps rewards. So whether you believe it or not, it's still working. So keep it up. Keep it up.
Absolutely appreciate it. Thank you again for coming back. Seriously. And thank you for being so willing to share what it is that you know. And thank you for making yet another very valuable deposit to us here at the Cashflow Diary.
Oh, Jay, it was my pleasure. Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It is time for you to move at the speed of instruction. Hey, here's what I'm going to tell you. I've already downloaded the audiobook, so you should do the same because there's more for you to learn and you know it. Go make it happen. It's been fun talking to you guys today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.